Hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoesReborn.com, with me as your host, Chris Crazy Poor Caucasian McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me today to talk about the news that Henry Golding is in talks to play the lead role in the upcoming G.I. Joe Snake Eyes movie is Justin Fantasy Caster Bell. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. Looks like we have our first bit of casting news, and it's a biggie, ladies and gents. A number of sites blew up earlier today with the news that Henry Golding is in talks to play the lead role in the upcoming G.I. Joe Snake Eyes movie. We actually called this particular piece of casting in our fantasy casting episode a few weeks back, although we had suggested Storm Shadow for this particular actor. Golding is most famous for his recent role as Nick Young in the John Chu film Crazy Rich Asians, and it should also be noted that John Chu directed G.I. Joe Retaliation, so we've changed the phrase to 6 Degrees of John Chu now. Some articles suggested that he was in talks for a role but didn't specify Snake Eyes, and most others claimed he would become the silent ninja assassin. Either way, it's a huge coup for the film, which needed a name like this on board if it was ever going to be a success. Justin, how excited are you for this news?
Oh, I'm very excited. I think, number one, that there is some kind of casting news is great, but this particular actor is certainly a welcome addition to the cast, especially if this ends up being true. I mean, I've heard rumors that he may be up for the role of Namor in an upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe film for Fantastic Four. So, I mean, obviously just rumors and early rumors, but he's obviously a very popular, very up-and-coming actor, and I think this kind of guy was sort of, exactly what we were talking about with our fan casting episode that we did, where we're trying to find these popular names that, obviously I'm a 45-year-old guy and I'm not hip, so I don't know who all these popular new folk actors are. But I think he really fills that mold nicely and could do a good job.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things to assume here. I mean,
yeah.
When the news first dropped, it appeared in one of the articles that it was very vague. It was saying he's in talks to be in a lead role on the Snake Eyes movie, and it didn't specify Snake Eyes. But what I seem to notice, the resulting barrage of articles that came from those original articles seem to jump on the fact, and I'm not sure if they just misread it and not really knowing the situation, thought he was in for Snake Eyes. I don't know, but we have had a number of people kind of say to us, yeah, well, this is a viable news source, and they're saying that he's in for the Snake Eyes role. So, there's elements coming from a few different angles here. I mean, for me, Storm Shadow would be a much better fit in terms of what we've had in the history, but if this is going to be like a reboot, which it could be if they're casting Henry Golding as Snake Eyes itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you think if they do you think it would be a complete reboot at this stage?
Oh, I think it would have to be, yeah. And I do just want to say, as long as he has a lead role, I don't really have a preference whether it's Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow. Yeah. I think he'll do an awesome job in either one. But, obviously, I think we picked him out for Storm Shadow simply, obviously because of his look and because of kind of that particular character. But there's no reason why I couldn't see him as Snake Eyes as well. But if he is Snake Eyes, I do think, we're definitely talking about a reboot, because they never really showed his adult face in the previous two movies. But, as a kid, you saw a 12-year-old Snake Eyes, kind of flipping around and fighting with Storm Shadow, and he was clearly not Asian. So, that you would have to think it's some sort of pseudo reboot, which I'm fine with if it is.
I mean, there has been a lot. I mean, it's been a mixed reception so far. We've had a lot of people kind of getting quite excited about it. We've had quite a large amount of the fandom I've seen are kind of like constantly bringing up the ethnicity, the fact he's not a white male with blonde hair. And I understand to a degree, but at the same time, like, if we're all equal here, guys, what difference does it make what gender we are? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're honestly saying at the top of this that this is not a race thing, then why should it matter what or ethnicity a person is when doing a role? I just don't see the problem with that personally.
Right. Now, I mean, to me, it could go both ways. I mean, number one, you're talking about a character who spends 90% of his time with a black mask and who doesn't talk. So does it really matter what race he is or anything like that? But, that works both ways. I mean, Henry, this actor is a potentially, blockbuster draw. Are you really going to take a guy like this and put him in a black mask and have him not talk? So in that way, it almost seems like it might lend more towards a Storm Shadow character if you're really using this guy as the focal point of the franchise. it seems odd that you would take an actor like this and then cover his face and tell him not to speak for the majority of his films.
I know he's very attractive as well, so I don't want him to cover his face. He's a good-looking dude.
So I mean, that's part of the reason why doing a film or anything with Snake Eyes has been such a challenge, is because how do you create a captivating story with a character who never speaks and who you never see his face? And especially when you're talking about Hollywood, where even in the super popular Marvel Cinematic Universe films, these heroes end up spending half of the movie with their masks off because they are the draw. So, I mean, like I said, with the Snake Eyes prequel, it makes sense, this guy being the draw, because his face will be exposed. You're going to see the lead up to Snake Eyes. But if they're getting this guy on as the franchise for multiple films, then how does that play out?
Just do the Marvel Comics thing and have him without his mask all the time with 3 black lines on it.
Yeah, there you go.
Done. I mean, for about 20 issues, I kept seeing Snake Eyes' face and just thinking, I could have sworn this guy was masked most of the time. You see, coming from the UK, Snake Eyes was far more mysterious than from the Marvel comics, where you kind of got a glimpse into his background every 5 minutes, and you got a glimpse into what he looked like a number of times, and then plastic surgery, and then the Payne brothers throw in like hot coals in his face, and then he seems to be okay again, and then you never really get. You hardly get him in his mask in Marvel comics early on.
It was, and that was one of my early. I mean, by and large, I loved Larry Hama's work on the G.I. Joe series, but it seemed like, they set up the Snake Eyes is so horribly disfigured, nobody can even stand to look at him. And then it was like the big gimmick, well, now we're going to show his face. And like, oh, he's got 3 scars. Okay, yeah, he looks a little nasty. Oh, now he got plastic surgery and he's
okay.
Anymore.
Yeah, he's fine, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't know. It's all comics, and it's kind of what they do and what happens.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, do you see this? Yeah. Do you see this as a direction if they do go with Henry as, and we're on first name terms now, by the way. If we do go with Henry on as Snake Eyes, do you see this being a positive shake-up for the brand, maybe going a different direction?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, any kind of blockbuster draw who's going to draw eyeballs and draw attention, I think is a good thing, whatever it means for the longevity of the brand or whatever. I mean, if it's going to give G.I. Joe legs, then I am all for it, because that's what the brand needs right now. And if you have to darken Snake Eyes' hair and make him Asian instead of, apple pie, blonde hair, blue-eyed American, then I'm fine with that. And I will certainly support whatever kind of new direction they choose to go in.
It kind of not screams to me, but it does suggest that they are focusing a lot of their attention towards like the Asian market.
Sure.
And with that, obviously, it makes a lot of sense, because obviously we saw a really good return on the Bumblebee movie in kind of China and around that. And around the kind of the east, Far East areas. So I mean, are we looking at them kind of going, okay, we seem to have a good stronghold out there. We seem to have a good draw. So let's focus on that. And do you think going with Snake Eyes as an Asian actor solidifies that kind of direction?
It's possible. I mean, there were kind of stories out there how choosing a very popular Korean actor for Storm Shadow and Rise of Cobra and Retaliation did draw in a lot of the Korean audience, where he is a superstar. So, I mean, that's certainly possible that they are leveraging that, so to speak, to get an international audience.
Not to diminish his role or anything like that, of course. No, I didn't mean to for that. I just mean as in it seems like a good move, is what I'm saying. Yeah. If they want to maximize this film as a box office kind of success. Yeah. Is what I'm getting at. The
interesting thing is, I mean, if you were asking about action stars, I wouldn't really picture Henry as an action star. But so I'm it'll be interesting to kind of see how they play it out.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. I mean, he's been in Crazy Rich Asians. He's been in a couple of other films. Yeah, but none of them have really been that style of film. However, I mean, I think most actors are very similar in that if they don't have the skill set for something, they'll damn certainly sort out that problem by 6 months in the gym and in the martial arts dojo or whatever. So I kind of feel like that
somebody like Chris Evans, who was in a lot of romantic comedies and then got cast as Captain America and was suddenly the most perfect specimen for 10 years while he had that role. So I mean,
Tom Cruise. I mean, the guy just learns how to fly a helicopter when he needs to. Do you know what I mean? And
no kidding.
hangs off the side of a plane. If Tom Cruise can do that, Henry Bloody Golding can play Snake Eyes in the Snake Eyes movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, Justin, thanks for jumping on, mate, to chat this interesting development in the Snake Eyes movie.
Not a problem. I'm glad we're getting some of this news.
I know it's starting to really speed up, and I'd like to also, while we're at this point, shout out to Allman Ellis for messaging us as soon as this news broke, and also Udana Wijesuraya. I apologise if I'm getting your name completely wrong, or at Silver Optimus on Twitter, for keeping us abreast of the situation as well. We really appreciate the heads up on these stories, guys, so thank you for the intel.
Absolutely, yeah, keep it coming.
And that's it. Justin, thank you for jumping on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. My pleasure.
We'll be back on to talk Henry Golding as Storm Shadow when the next news breaks. And then this is completely irrelevant. I'm just kidding. That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host Justin Bell. See you next time. And as always, Snake Eyes. Full Force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter at The Full Force, liking the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.